I I bit on one of these things and sucked down a piece of bread and about choked.
Well, I tried to repeat the great Gordita incident of 1991.
Oh, did you?
But it was with an apple. All right, buddy.
You might explain what that was to all of our viewers, just in case while I don't choke.
Yeah, I'm not going. What you eat what you got in your mouth first.
That's a good idea, actually. I'd probably choke again. Yeah, Carol, you won't believe this. Nobody would ever believe that moi, would do such a thing, but I was in the wrong room. I opened up the chat room from the other night where me and you and Dave and Shannon met, and I was sitting here waiting for it to come on, and it just never came on, never came on, never came on. And I finally looked and saw the right thing.
Yeah, so going back to the great Gordita incident of 1991, I was in grad school in New Mexico, and Tim came out to hunt deer with me during the archery season. And we went to a little restaurant in Las Cruces, New Mexico, that made, honest to God, gorditas, which
Oh, good.
Taco Bell don't know what they're talking about because those aren't gorditas. But it's like a pita. It's like a, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah,
It's like a pita bread, but it's made out of corn.
yeah, cornmeal. That's a good way to put it.
And it's sliced on the edge, and it's filled with wonderfulness,
Yeah.
beef and sour cream and all kind of good stuff.
Tomatoes and lettuce and
Lettuce and cheese,
salsa.
and Tim poured the salsa to his because they make good salsa in that part of the world, being right next door to Hatch.
Yeah, right in the pepper factory of the world.
And somehow he sucked some of that salsa down into his lungs.
Talking while I was eating is exactly.
I thought he was going to tip over on me there.
That took a while to recover from.
He said that hurt about as bad as anything had ever hurt.
I choked and coughed and choked and coughed and yeah, that wasn't all that
And
pleasant.
we finally got to go chase deer around in the desert.
Yeah, that was just that was a bad thing. It was not. I can't believe you remember it was 1991.
1991.
Oh. I've tried to think back on when that was several times. I mean, what year? And I keep trying to think, was it that early? But it was.
Yeah,
Good morning, everybody.
it was my first full year out there.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know what that little place was, and I'm sure it's probably long gone, but I sure wish
I could drive you to it right now, but I can't remember the name of it.
I might could even find that, but I might even remember what part of town it was in. I remember
it was right in the down, right square in the middle of town, the old part of town.
The old part of town, yeah.
And
good morning, Gloria.
It was a block north of the kind of center of the universe there.
Yeah, it wasn't too far north of it. Seems like it was just north of 10 too, wasn't it? Not very far.
No.
A couple blocks.
No, I mean, yeah, it was within a couple miles.
Yeah, well, okay, maybe that's.
It was
that's right. Happy Valentine's Day.
About a half mile east of or west of I-25 and a couple miles north of 10.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of 25. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Good morning, Chris Nichols. How are you today? Let's see. Chuck, good morning, Chuck. Good morning, Tina. Who else have I missed? Good morning, Car Key. I just noticed, Car Key, Carol, that you've got, I didn't realize you had all those numbers. Now, so I have a question. Do those numbers change when you go in? I'm in YouTube. You can't see them, Mark. Well, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can. 97, 90, and
Yeah,
1650.
I can't remember, Carol. Or are those numbers always the same when you guys come in now to YouTube, or they change each time a different number? Well, Chris says he's vertical, so that's a good start. Anytime you can open your eyes and you're vertical, it's probably a good thing. Yeah, well, I do know this much. It was something YouTube did, and I'm sure somebody in some office somewhere sitting at a computer thought this was a really great idea. But I've never heard anybody that liked the idea, nor do I understand what benefit it is. The at symbol in front of your name, and then the let numbers. And that's, I mean, unless the numbers are because suddenly they had so many car keys that they just, couldn't find out which one started the car. Maybe, I don't know. When I first met Carol in chat room, I used to kid her all the time about not being able to find my car keys. Oh, let's see. She thinks they're the same every time. I was just looking to see if anybody else said anything. I guess that's not. So how's your weather? Let's talk weather around the country today. How's your weather?
Mine? It's sunny, and so far it's pretty. There's not much W yet.
Not much W.
There's
did you guys get
the sun's shining.
Did you get a decent amount of moisture the other day?
We did. Well, I mean, we got some, which is better than none.
Well, some's better than none.
We talked to Mom and Dad yesterday, and they're just now melting out. It's been like zero up there for days. Mom hadn't been outside of the house for 12 days in a row.
Oh, wow. I'm sure she's getting cabin fever.
Yeah, she went out yesterday, and
they finally warmed up.
The sun finally broke out, and they got to go outside. And Dad's been feeding horses, and
you have to shovel a path down to do that. How much snow did they have?
Oh, over a foot. And it just and then it iced on top of it, and it just stayed,
Wow. Yeah, that's not good. Carol's, I'm guessing Carol's is melting off if they've got any left. I was looking to see what Chuck and Tina said. I know they had people in this room that I know of. They had a lot. Gloria is in Louisiana, so they should have been okay. I watched a funny video today. Things were just sort of running through over here as I was doing stuff over here, and it was there's a guy and his wife that a lot of us know from Disney stuff years ago, but he and his wife do their own little thing, and they were doing one about he was just walking around the house talking about things. Apparently, they had some busted pipes, which in Florida I had forgotten this, but in Florida they put a lot of water pipes and stuff poured in the concrete floor. So when they break, that's a real problem. Anyway, he was walking.
They do that in Texas too.
Yeah,
their water lines are buried about this deep.
Well, yeah, that's a problem too. He was walking around the house, so I just thought it was funny because everybody who lives in colder weather knows. Hey, our Johns, everybody that lives in colder weather knows you have to do this, but he was having to cover up his outdoor spigots and stuff because they were about freezing. Apparently, it got cold enough that it got below freezing, I guess, down there a little bit. Tina says it's 23 degrees, overcast, but no snow in a few days. They're happy. Our Johns, you're in Florida. Just how cold did it get this past week, or I mean, near where you are? And anyway, I just thought it was funny that some Florida people were having to suddenly worry about their pipes freezing. Which is a bad thing, but I'd forgotten about them putting stuff in floors in the pouring the concrete, and the pipes are all in it because you put the pipes down first, then you pour a slab, and everything's contained. That's a bad cracker when something starts leaking. We
bury our pipe 6 feet.
Well, yeah, but it freezes down to 7. So most stuff in this part of the world is 18 inches or below, and that's usually okay. But I've seen it freeze down past that, but it's rare.
So there's an interesting thing. I'm sure Tina and Chuck will know about it. If you got pipes that are buried under like your driveway, where your tires run down your driveway, that forces that frost, that ice deeper and deeper into the soil over the year. If your winter lasts long enough, that's where the break always happens.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
I had my septic line break like that one time. It
no.
It was buried 6 feet deep, and it was big PVC, pipe. She's still busted.
How'd you? That's probably a dumb question since it was a septic line, but how did you know that? Did it come to the surface, or did you have to get a detector out there to find it?
No, I had to witch the line and brought in a piece of equipment and dug the driveway up.
Tina says, yeah, never bury pipes under something other than dirt. Huh. Well, that kind of makes sense. We last year, a couple of years ago, before we moved here at the other old house, we had a water. We suddenly started hearing water running in the basement, and turns out that it was the water line outside the house where it comes up out of the ground through the wall, and they had been working on the water lines and stuff in that county and that along our road, and they'd broken it. So they ended up having to get it fixed. We didn't have to pay for it, but they were trying to figure out, well, how are we gonna do this? And I said, I'll tell you how I think you should do it. They were going to dig up the whole front yard and put in all new pipes and stuff. And I said, because now you can drill them and put them in. You don't have to dig everything up, at least in this part of the world. I don't know if you can do them 6 feet deep that way. But here you can run the pipe. You can drill the pipe underground and send it to where you want. It's got a camera on, and run it up and pop it up right by the wall. I said, that might cost. I said, chances are it won't cost as much or more, because they were going to have to break open sidewalks, dig up the whole yard, then have the whole yard redone. And, and I said it would be a whole lot simpler to drill that line in. And that's what they did. And it was cool to watch them do it. I mean, it just took them, I think they did it in a few hours. It didn't take that long once they got the equipment out there. But they had a machine pulled up, like a drill machine. And it drills this way instead of this way. And ran it right up to the house. That was neater than heck. I thought that was just great. But anyway, but they build a lot of houses now here on slab too.
Good morning, Mr. John.
When I was growing up, people didn't. Is John in here? Our John's is here. Is the other John here?
The surf bum just jumped in.
Oh, I didn't see him.
He's right there.
Why can I not see? Oh, there you are, John. Good morning, sir. Yeah, tell us about your weather and cold and how deep are your water pipes? I bet yours are probably deeper than mine, but I bet they're not as deep as Mark's. Um, anyway, bad. That's bad when when all your pipes are encased in concrete and then they break. But they find, they find them now though. And we actually did this working on airplanes. I've seen this done. We had a tool one time that you could put around in ductwork and things where there were hydraulic lines or pneumatic lines, and you can find it's almost like, but it's a hearing thing. You can pick up the sound, and so you can find the leak, and they do that now with water leaks underground and in concrete, I imagine. But to dig up all the pipes, that would just be, I mean, to bust the floor up, the foundation of the house, and then fix the pipes and then put it all back in would be no
Crazy.
thing. Bad cracker. Bad cracker. Tina says we have at least a couple of water main breaks every winter. Repairing those is really hard work. You mean at your house or just in general in your area? I mean, we've had them here too from time to time, and they went through a spell in the Knoxville area where it seems like every other day a water main was breaking, and I don't know if that was just because heavy traffic had increased so bad or if it was freezing down that deep. I don't know, but um, that really upsets things for days on end. Not to mention just messing up the roads in general. But anyhow, such is life in cold climates. Oh me, hope everyone is doing well on this fine day of the Valentine. Funny thing about why we have a Valentine's Day, most of you probably know this, but I guess within the Catholic realm of church, Saint Valentine was a person, and this day is celebrated because this is the day that he was executed, and I don't remember why, but I thought that seems like an odd thing, and we give out little hearts and Valentines on his day of death. Interesting. I did wrap the pipe before it comes into the house. Well, that's probably a good idea. Did I missed it, Art Richie? What did you say the temperature got down to? I don't know if he said or not. 23. No, it's Tina. I don't know if he said or not. I know it got down to freezing, but I don't think it lasted very long. But then again, if your pipe's sticking up out of the ground and it's just water running through it, it don't take much. And they're all pretty much all plastic pipe now, so I don't know if that freezes quicker or slower than regular. Does seem a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it, Tina? I'm sure you have 36 inches deep where John at Surf Bum is. Lots of frozen pipes. Oh, but yeah, vacant homes. That's the bad thing about vacant homes in places like where you live or here. The water pipes break, and then nobody knows it till they turn the water back on when people move in, and then suddenly the whole house is flooded. And that has happened more than once that I know of. At the Jersey Shore, thousands of summer homes. Must be nice to have money. Yeah, I guess you could say they've got enough to must have enough to fix it. It got down below freezing for a whole about 8 hours. Sorry, Richie. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just going to laugh with you a moment when we think about our friends in Canada and Mark up in Wyoming, where it's been below zero for months now, or mostly 2 nights in a row, that is rare. The coldest I ever when I was in Florida. Brenda knows about this. I was crewing a car in Daytona one year, and we got to the racetrack. We had to be there at 6 or 7 in the morning. It was 28, and all the stuff it had rained the day before, so everything in the pits was frozen. We had to break ice off everything. It was a challenge. That was in 1992, maybe. It's been a while. That was the, in fact, that was the year before I hurt my back. That was the year I hurt my back. Anyhow, let me see if I can't do the old magic trick here and get some stuff up. I got a couple of things, a little bit of house cleaning to do of sorts. Okay, what am I doing? Here I go. So last night I did a thing. I've been wanting to put a camera out here of some sort to, kind of watch the building at night, or if I needed to check on it, and because my books are out here. I don't want people out here stealing books. That's probably funny that I would think people in this county would want to steal a book. Anyway, so I put the camera up. I had a camera that I was going to put on the front door, and I couldn't. It was just harder to work than I wanted to, and so I brought it up here so I can just use it as a camera. And I hooked it up last night, and somehow I accidentally turned the alarm on, not realizing that it would start screaming outside. So I opened the door last night to throw out a little bit of coffee I had in the cup, and it started going off. And I had every dog in the neighborhood was howling and barking and carrying on, and I couldn't get the damn thing to go off. And I got it off, and then it came right back on, and I got it off, and it came right back on, and I was just about to blow it off the door. And I finally got it shut up, but before I got down the house, it started again. Wait a minute. Tom, how's Brenda? Tim, how's Brenda? Well, Tommy's my brother, but I don't think he would know either. Did you do anything nice for Valentine's Day? Let's make up a lie, Brenda, and say I did, and go with that. Now she's doing better. She could probably. I think she's still in here. She had a little tumble the other day that was a bit upsetting, and I won't even begin to try to tell you how it happened. But it was. I didn't think I was going to be able to. We were concerned I wasn't going to be able to get her up because of what happened. Her foot got stuck in something, and let's just say, and it took me a good bit of doing to get her out of there. So that was kind of silly. Oh well, I think she's here. I saw one thing. I may be telling tall tales here, Tina, but I thought I saw her come in. We'll know in a minute because she'll say something. I think about what I've just said. But anyway, she she got bruised up a little bit. Oh, there she is. Brenda's doing good. He bought me a special treat. Well, there you go. Thank you. Actually, I probably did do something, but I was just mentioning. Everybody asking how you were, and I just mentioned you had a little bit of a slip and fall, and she's got a couple of bruises and a sore spot that she's icing. So we'll get her healed up from that, and maybe get her healed. Finally, I thought she was finally getting healed up from being sick after Christmas, and it's taken forever. I don't know if other people have had that same issue or not, but around here, but Brenda, you're welcome to tell all you want or not want about that since you're in here. I don't want to be talking about your miseries. So anyway, let's. I'm gonna. Like I said, I got a couple of things that like the things that happened today, and since it's oh, that don't sound good at all. I'm gonna mute that just in case he has another one. Hey, Chuck, that's great. I forgot about that. Good deal. Yeah, Chuck got to come home from the hospital. Did he? come on this morning? Or, well, it's still early. So is everybody okay?
Yeah, we got a grand dog here that
Oh, I see.
I don't think too highly of.
And right now I'm thinking Wolfie don't think too highly of it either.
No, go on, get out of here.
So anyway, back to where I was at. Consider hitting the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. And that's about all I'm going to say about that. But we'll talk about things that happened on this day. So all the way back in 270 AD, conventional time, or whatever they call that, traditional time or period, St. Valentine is believed to have been executed, which originated Valentine's Day. And I still don't really understand all that. Perhaps if for somebody who knows that history, feel free to let me know, or I can look it up. I didn't. 1778, the United States flag is formally recognized by a foreign power for the very first time. Explorer Captain James Cook was killed in Hawaii on this date in 1779. Elena's probably not here. That was after he supposedly discovered Hawaii, Europeans, white men, and all that stuff. 1859, Oregon was admitted as the 33rd state in the Union. I thought they were after that. That's interesting. 1876, Alexander Graham Bell and Elijah Gray both applied for phone patents at the same time. Now, I wonder how that happened. I'm thinking there was some sneaking around going on there. 1920, the League of Women Voters was founded in Chicago. I think these things are kind of important. In Wyoming, if I'm not mistaken, was the first state in the union to allow women to vote. Was it not, Mark?
It was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And it was way before that.
Yeah, it was. I was going to say it was before that actually the women had to vote before that was formed. I believe that's the official. They were already, of course, suffragettes were working on getting the vote before that. But also, speaking of killing, also on this date, 1929, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened in Chicago. It was targeted gangsters from George Bugs Moran's gang. And if I'm not mistaken, either the gang that was killed or the gang that did the killing was what they called the Purple Gang, which was actually a Jewish organization of not mafioso, but whatever they call themselves. Somehow they got that name from maybe they were running wine or something back in those days, since that's what most of them were fighting about. This one's important to us. Mark, you won't remember this. Well, you won't know about this, but this was a big deal here. In 1983, United American Bank of Knoxville, Tennessee collapsed. Its president, Jake Butcher, was later convicted of fraud. Now, Jake Butcher, 1983, have to think about what year that was. In 1982, the World's Fair was here in Knoxville. And it was a big deal. It was downtown near the university and right near the river and all this. And Jake Butcher was heavily involved in that. And the money some of the money apparently had something to do with this bank collapse. That affected me in the future because there was a lot of Butcher property that ended up being sold off around North Lake. They had bought thousands of acres of land with, I'm guessing, some of this ill-gotten booty. And when everything collapsed, it all got sold off. So Jake Butcher went to jail, which, like I said, around here it was a big deal. Most people wouldn't have heard of it. But 1990, Voyager 1 space probe takes the pale blue dot image of Earth. I believe that is, or was at that time at least, the furthest picture away from the planet. And it was just a little. You could still see the blue, but that was about as far away they figured then, at least as far away as they could get and take a picture. And in 2005, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this. YouTube was launched. And unfortunately, also on on Valentine's Day in 2018, the shooting occurred at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and it is one of the deadliest school massacres with 17 fatalities and 17 injuries, and that was, of course, horrific. I had forgotten that was on Valentine's Day. I wonder if that was significant. Can't remember if it was or not. Probably. So then I wanted to talk about just a few quick birthdays. In 1628, a gentleman by the name of Valentine Greatrakes, who was Irish, was running around in England faith healing everybody. Frederick Douglass was born on this date, the American abolitionist. Jack Benny, the American comedian, was born on this day. Lydia Hamilton Smith, an African American businesswoman, died or was born on this day, and she was pretty famous eventually over some of the things she did, especially since she was a woman and black. In 1819, Christopher Latham Sholes, an American journalist and politician, invented the typewriter. Now, where would we all be without the typewriter? And that was on Valentine's Day, or at least that's when they credit it. 1824, Winfield Scott Hancock was born. Hancock was famous for being the Union general who held the Confederates' high point, I think what they call the high water mark or the angle at the Battle of Gettysburg. That was that was the full extent of the Confederate charge or Pickett's charge, which is so famous at Gettysburg. They got to that point, and Hancock was the general who was commanding the troops there that stopped them. He was right up there amongst it. In fact, was wounded for his efforts. And I got this little tidbit, which I've got a little bit more information about. I'm going to pull up here. He said, as he fumbled with his buttons, where did he go? There it is. Let's see, where am I at? Margaret E. Knight, another woman inventor, American inventor, invented the paper bag as we know it today, in which groceries were carried in for 100 and something years. She made a machine that would produce the flat bottom paper bags. And she's been called the most famous 19th century woman inventor. She founded the Eastern Paper Bag Company in 1870, creating paper bags for groceries similar in form to the ones that would be used in later generations, and received dozens of patents for different things over her career in her lifetime. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, paper bags, we still use paper bags when we can get them, as opposed to plastic. And I can't see the chat, so if anybody's commenting on anything, bear with me. I don't see it. Let me see if I can make that. There I go. Now I can. Hey, Jason, welcome in. Also on this day, Julian Scott was born. Now, nobody knows who he is probably, but he was an American soldier and a drummer. So he was young when he signed up when the war started, Civil War started. And he was a Medal of Honor recipient. And basically, and I had a note on that. And what did I do with it? Yes, here he is. He was from Vermont. He served as a Union Army drummer during the Civil War, where he received America's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, for his actions at the Battle of Lee's Mills. He was also, and I'll tell you about the rest of that minute, but he received that because he was written up for accommodation, or for accommodations, how's that said, by men that were in that battle, because he, the young drummer boy, I think by the time this happened, this was right near the end of the Civil War. In fact, I think this is one of the last major battles of the Civil War, maybe. He was dragging wounded soldiers off the battlefield, getting them out of the line of fire and protecting them and getting them to a place of safety. And apparently he went back time and time and time again to retrieve more wounded soldiers and get them off the battlefield. And for that, he received the Medal of Honor. There's a couple of other gentlemen in life who have received the Medal of Honor for that very same thing. One one that comes to my mind is the one that the movie was made about. Oh crap! What was that movie? Mark probably knows it. I can't remember. The marine medic who, when the war started, he wanted to sign up as a non-combatant, and of course he caught hell for that. But he became a medic and ended up serving with great honor and dignity during the war, and saved a bunch of men's lives. And on one of the island campaigns, I can't remember which one, or maybe it was part of the, oh crap, was it D-Day? No, it was in the Pacific. Um, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, this young man did that, and that painting in the lower right hand corner is one that he did, and that painting now stands within, and that's called a Confederate surrender, and it, that painting is in the Capitol building of Vermont, I believe, the state capitol. Catherine Stinson, and an American aviator, was born on this day. Now that one's important to me for a little bit different reason. I have flown in Stinson airplanes. Stinson Aircraft Company was created by her two brothers. You might appreciate this, Carol. They started in, I believe they first started in Chicago, but they moved to Detroit, and that's where they set up business. And that's where they built their airplanes, and they built airplanes for quite a few years after that. But she was famous. She kind of brought the fame to them because she was another female aviator that you don't hear as much about. But she did a lot of things that didn't that you'd think about somebody like Amelia Earhart doing. But for example, she was a pioneer in 1912, became the fourth woman in the United States to earn the FAI pilot certificate. I cannot remember. FAI was Federal Aeronautics something. I can't remember what the I was for back then. And she set flying records for aerobatic maneuvers, distance, and endurance. She was the first female pilot employed by the U.S. Postal Service and the first civilian pilot to fly the mail in Canada. She was also one of the first pilots to ever fly at night, and was the first female pilot to fly in Canada, Japan, and China. She also was the first woman to fly over London, England. So she was quite busy. And kind of her brother sort of rode her coattails into fame, and they started the Stinson Aircraft Company, which was one of my favorite Stinson airplanes. I always loved this plane. First time I ever saw one was in Florida. And we always called it the Gull Wing Stinson. I'm not sure of the exact model numbers, but it was a high wing monoplane, and the wing has got this really the wing is just very pleasing. The whole thing is almost like art, but it's really neat airplane, aesthetically pleasing. I just thought it was a beautiful airplane. Um, and she had a sister Marjorie, and her brothers Eddie and Jack, and they were all involved in aviation. And let's see. Oh. And, and I don't know why I put this in here, but it came up as one of the things that happened on this date. And 1913, Jimmy Hoffa was born on Valentine's Day. And of course, I guess I put that in there because, we're still looking for him, sort of. Now, in honor of Black History Month, I wanted to mention this lady because there's a link. Um, her name was Lucy Higgs Nichols, and she was born, I think, she was named Lucy Higgs because she was born in enslavement and was kind of passed back and forth between North Carolina and Tennessee. The owner had family in both, and she shifted around. And I have some more information about her. She was an African American woman who escaped slavery. She served as a nurse for the Union Army during the American Civil War, known affectionately as Aunt Lucy. And the sole picture that the only picture anybody knows about her is the one that's here. And that circle is not correct. That moved on me. But she's right here in the middle of that photograph. And this is an enlargement. That's an original photo, really high resolution for the time. what's unique about this is that is a group of survivors from the Civil War who belonged to the organization. It's sort of like a fraternal organization after the war, Union soldiers of the Grand Army of the Republic. And she was the only woman in that group, the only black woman in that group. And because she wasn't officially listed as a soldier, she wasn't going to be allowed in, and all the members, all the members who served with her, she was a nurse for all these men in the 23rd Indiana Volunteer Infantry Regiment of the Army of the Tennessee, which is why I put it in there. But pretty interesting lady. She was so devoted to the soldiers as they were to her and her daughter Mona, who passed away during the Civil War. They weren't sure if she was killed or exactly how that happened. And she died in 1915. Oh, and well, there was another occasion where her Union veterans rose up. She again, because she wasn't officially a soldier, because she was a woman, and they didn't allow that. The government was petitioned to give her a pension so she could have a little bit of money to live on when she got older, and they did, which I thought was pretty good considering what she did during the war. But apparently she was quite the nurse, and she was with them once she joined them she came in as a runaway. Her owner came north to try to get her back, and the soldiers all said, no, hell no, and sent him packing. And then after that, she traveled with the Army to all the battles that they were in during the Civil War, which was Vicksburg, which is where her daughter died. Vicksburg, and then she was in Sherman's March to the Sea through Atlanta and all that, and then back up into the Carolinas. So she traveled with the Army as they went as a nurse. I'm sure there were other nurses, but she apparently was the most famous one that they had that was there. Okay, I mentioned that was the only picture of her. Mark, are you in there? I can't see the camera at the moment. Yeah. What was the movie about the Marine Corps? Somebody might have put it in over here about the Marine Corps medic that rescued all those guys off that cliff and got them down on the beach to safety. You and I've talked.
He was in the Army.
Was he in the Army? Okay.
Yeah. I can't think the name of the movie.
I can't either. Save my life. Carol, that's why I put her in.
Maybe it'll come around on the guitar.
Do what?
Maybe it'll come back around on the guitar.
Yeah, maybe it will.
Desmond, golly, what was his last name?
Okay, I got it back here.
He was a conscientious objector from Virginia.
Right, and he became a medic, and then he went in and saved all those guys during that battle.
Desmond Dawes, I think his name was. Hacksaw Ridge, that's right.
Hacksaw Ridge, that was it. Hacksaw Ridge. Whoever said that, or if you said yes. Thank you, John.
The surf bomb.
I'm trying to figure out right now who Chris is saying is buried under the 50-yard line at Neyland Stadium. My wife said Plainsville, Oklahoma. Dear Mom knows best. Thanks to John. I missed that. I don't know what that was about. I have to back up. But I want to see who was buried in Neyland Stadium. I may be able to debunk that, Chris. So he is buried on the 50-yard line. Oh, Giant Stadium. Oh, we're talking about Jimmy Hoffa again. I always heard that he was in Concrete somewhere, but I also have heard many times that Giant Stadium is connected to his disappearance. And since I don't know any different, I'm going to say that may be true. Who knows? Brenda's dad, Jimmy, if you don't know, Jimmy Hoffa was famous for being the head of the Teamsters Union for quite some time and was pretty bad. And Brenda's dad was a teamster when he was still alive and doing that, and they referred to him as the Great White Father. I'm not sure where that came from, but that's what her dad always referred to Jimmy Hoffa as. Okay, now let me get a drink. Yeah, I got it, Chris. Thank you. I finally got back. Desmond Dawes, Chris says. And you said that already, so. Hey, Dave. I see Adventures by Dave made it in. And if I missed anybody else, I apologize. Let me run back through the chat just for a minute before I get wound up here. Did you buy some of Butcher's land? Tina wanted to know. No, I wish I had. I think you could have got it pretty cheap. But a lot of it sold, though, around my part of TVA territory around North Lake where I worked mostly. There was a lot of former butcher land. They were from that part. They were from, I think, Claiborne County, Tennessee. And they owned a lot of land there and had bought up lots of land, which I'm pretty sure had something to do with that money. And so when they went bankrupt and it all went up on the auction block, lots and lots of it was bought and then developed into subdivisions and stuff, which were a pain in my tuchus for the rest of my career. So, because that was just, well, it just was. And so the butchers were, kind of a thorn in a lot of people's side for a long time. I think they're both have passed away now. I think there's the two brothers. One of them was probably more guilty than the other one. Anyway, and their whole collapse and all that deal kind of put a little bit more of a taint or a stain on the 82 World's Fair. So that didn't help much either. Okay. Now, somebody recommended, or I wrote down somewhere, somebody said I should talk a little bit more about what we do we've talked about bears on many occasions, but this was wanted to talk a little bit more about some black bear management issues, and as opposed to doing one that's real broad and vague, I want to give some facts, and then I want to get down to some local stuff that I can talk about a little bit better. So I want to give just the general status here. I've got most of it's written down here, and you can see it. But bear population is actually in the United States overall has been increasing for quite some time now. And for the most part, it's pretty robust, and there's regulated hunting in just about every state. And a lot of times, it has. When we've got as many people now as we do in this country, they're invariably going to run into conflicts, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about in a minute. The local conflicts that we deal with here. For example, but even and several states have actual black bear management plans that stand alone as part of their overall wildlife management planning, if they even have such a thing. For example, in California, which I didn't even know if they allowed them to be hunted at all now, but think they've got roughly 60,000 bears across 9 regions in their state, which is a large number, one of the higher numbers in the country, probably until you get up around Alaska or something. And their plan focuses on using scientific data to monitor populations and mitigate conflicts. And I want to emphasize something here first, not to get down on California or anybody else, but the use of scientific data for these kind of things is the way it should be done, not just on the school of public opinion necessarily. And they do allow black bear hunting. Now they don't allow hounds hunting, I believe, but they do allow hunting at least in certain areas of the state. New York has a blueprint for management to balance the population size with socioeconomic issues and ecological impacts. Bear populations have increased significantly there. I don't know, Tina, do you guys have, Gatlinburg really needs to work on their black bear management. That's true, Chris, and that's one of the things I want to talk about because they do actually have some stuff going on that probably doesn't get enough press, but and it's probably still being ironed out because there's a lot of bears around Gatlinburg, and it's largely because of the park. But anyway, and they brought a lot of it on themselves, but they're trying to fix some of it. Um, I don't know, Tina. You guys, I don't where you live exactly may not be that rural, but do you hear a lot about bear interaction in New York? I mean, I always thought the upstate New York probably would be a good place for them. New Hampshire manages their bears across 6 regions. Again, they're balancing population and habitat availability. Again, that's the key. Habitat availability is the key in most places. As we spread out and urban sprawl gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and cities get bigger and wider, we intrude into habitat, black bear habitat, panther or mountain lion habitat, wolf habitat, you name it, grizzly bear habitat. Um, you elk habitat and deers and things like that, people don't seem to worry about. They can be just as bad. Wisconsin DNR uses regional management, same thing, annual regulated hunting seasons, and most of these are online, and you can find them there. But not every state publishes actual black bear. Um, they don't break them out to the extent that others do. Tennessee actually has a pretty good plan that's public and you can get. I've got a copy of it, but it's I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Missouri has a 2020 to 2030 management plan that's out there that can be looked at. For example, Florida, which is a growing and expanding bear population, believe it or not, with all the people in Florida. But that's the problem. As the population grows in bears and people, it gets worse and worse. Um, and they're discussing now about potential hunting quotas and things to manage some of their density. I don't know that people don't think about Florida and the coastal region as black bear country, but there are black bears all the way across from Florida to Louisiana. I don't know if um, Jason can speak to that at all, but last fall at the Battle of Gatlinburg fly fishing tournament, met a couple of bears competing with the fishermen. Oh, that's cool. Probably not to the fishermen and women. Um, Never feed bears. That's not good. Oh, they were feeding on trout. Well, that's kind of natural. Um, Key management themes on all these are these all these. Anytime you do this, it's regional management and conflict mitigation, and that's always the hard part. And then regulating harvest, which is also a conflict between. That's also conflict mitigation, in my opinion, because that you got to work it out with the public. So let's see what I had next. Now, this is as an example. This is um, a specialist or someone working for one of the DNRs, and I don't remember where this picture came from, but they're tagging and monitoring bears, and they keep records with DNA now. All we need is hair samples from bears, and you can, basically identify it. They do that here in the Smokies a lot. They can track most all the bears that are here and identify them, even if they've never seen them, just by the hair. And then if they catch them again and do have them in a trap or a situation like this where they can tag them and weigh them and get all that, then they can number them and identify them, and they know them forever. Um, Alaska has an estimation of somewhere over 100,000 black bears, and they don't know how high it goes. They just know there's at least that many. California, 25 to 35,000 in the whole state. Alabama, they think maybe has a couple of hundred, and I think that's growing because as they travel down the Cumberland mountain chain, they can get into northern Alabama, and I suspect there are more bears there than they know. I don't know if they've actually studied it as much there. Arkansas thinks they've got about 3,000. Colorado, 16,000. Connecticut, 800 to 1,000. Florida, 4,000. Georgia, 5,000. Idaho, 20 to 30,000. Kentucky, at least 1,000. I'm sure that's much higher than that now, too. Uh, Louisiana, 500 to 850. Hey, Nico, welcome in. From what I understand, there are quite a few bears up north of the Old Forge and Boonville area. I suspect that is true, Chuck. Good advice, Karki. Oh, I see them on video coming in the shops. That's true. Yeah, I see them. We have that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Maine has 35,000 at least. Again, that's another state that probably has way more than that. Um, Maryland has. I know that when you get into the Canadian provinces north of Maine, there's lots of black bears, and they don't care about boundaries or rivers. They just go back and forth. Maryland has a couple of thousand. Massachusetts, they think, has about 4,500. Michigan, 17,000. I wonder how much of that is north on the UP. Minnesota has at least 13,500. I'd say they've got more than that too. Montana, again, 15,000 plus. Nevada, 500. Missouri, 1,000. New Hampshire, 4,900. New Jersey. There you go. There you go, John. At least 3,000 black bears in your state, buddy. New York, 7,000 plus, and New Mexico, at least 5,500. And 20,000, it ranges from that. Oklahoma has a few. Ohio has at least 75, Mark. I'd say there's more than that there. I'd say when you get over around West Virginia and northern part of that corner of the state, I'd say there's more than that. Would be my guess. And I wouldn't doubt they're not all over that state when you consider how much agriculture goes on, because they don't have a problem at all going into a corn patch and just eating their way through it. That's would be till they got caught. That'd be great habitat. Tennessee has. I think this number's low too, but 5,700 at least in Tennessee. A lot of those are counted in the Smokies, so that's partly where that number comes from. Um, and the next highest one, Virginia, 19,000, Washington, 27, Wisconsin, 24. So anyway, um, the only states without significant numbers or breeding populations include Delaware, Hawaii, which I'm assuming there are no black bears in Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Rhode Island, and South Dakota. Most of those states are either overpopulated for bears or don't have really great black bear habitat anymore. And just to note, those population numbers are estimates provided by state wildlife agencies and can vary based on the survey method. So let's talk about things we did and learned and were wrong about black bear management. This was a common scene at national parks in the early part of the 20th century. And this one in particular was very famous because this is what was known as the bear lunch counters, and it even had a sign. I mean, they actually promoted this for a while, where tourists could go sit on bleachers and watch the bears eat. And they created this terrible system where the bears were fed junk and garbage, and that just made them worse and worse and worse. And this is from Yellowstone, but Yellowstone wasn't the only national park that had this problem. Yellowstone got probably more publicity because Yellowstone was more famous about these lunch counter areas, and made famous by the Great Outdoors movie with John Candy, who had a great scene where they were out watching the bears, and the bears decided to join them and climbed all over their car, and I think got inside with them and all kinds of stuff. If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. He was going to take his kids back because that's what he did when he was a kid, go see the bears at the dump. Um, from the 1910s until the 1960s, they actively managed this and like I said, sometimes encouraged it. Black bears and grizzlies in this case, which turned into major tourist attractions, which just created more and more problems. It is so hard for me to believe that they actually did that at this level, but they did. Not the right way to go about it. What do we say about fed bears?
They're dead bears.
Dead bears. That's right. And look at the size of some of those guys in that feeding area there. Those are hefty bears. So these are some photographs from, I think these are mostly Yellowstone, but we see this here also. Kind of still see this here. It's not as bad as it used to be. I mean, practice, which included roadside feeding. It was not people get out and open their picnic baskets. They thought it was just the most fun thing in the world. Feed the bears along the road. You know, look, they come right up to your window and get your tater chips. I mean, it got really bad, and it just encouraged the bears to get out on the road, which was a problem for the bears and people. Caused a lot of traffic issues. And again, we were getting fed bears that a lot of had to be put down.
We call those bear jams.
Bear jams, yeah.
They still happen in
Oh,
Yellowstone.
yeah, they still happen here too. It's just they're not. I'd like to think people aren't as bad as they used to be, but I'm not sure about that. Carol said something about the bears. Most of theirs, she's probably in the UP and the northern LP, and I would suspect that's true. Yeah, we still have bear jams here. I mean, I've sat in plenty of them in the Smokies in my lifetime, and I've gotten out of the car. I mean, you're parked and taking pictures of bears up in cherry trees and stuff like that. A lot of the bear jams I've seen that I saw here in more recent years, the bears at least were feeding naturally, like when the wild cherries would come in and I mean, I've seen 300-pound black bears in the very tip top of big giant cherry trees. I don't know how in the heck they get up there and stay without everything breaking, but they do. Now, what tourists do there is they're not feeding the bears, but the idiots get out there right under the bears and they'll take pictures. It's a little bit like walking up to a buffalo in Yellowstone or something. It's just stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. I'll just say it what it is. But they started filing in the 60s and 70s to try to cut all this stuff out and try to get bears to not be. And the next picture is one I wanted to make a point about too. Two points. The upper left-hand picture, roadside feeding. People are stopped. You know, there's a sow and at least one cub. But the other thing to notice is the trash can. This was a common thing, the trash receptacle back then near a picnic area or something, was just these cans. And it probably took a black bear. The first black bear that ever ran up on one of these cans was probably thwarted for about, I don't know, 2 minutes before they were in it. And then once they learn to get in it, they can get in it. I've seen pictures of bears literally walk up to a car and open the car door because they've learned how to pull the handle open. And of course, if they can't do that, they'll break in the windows, but which kind of addresses that lower picture. And that could be staged. I don't know, but probably not. You know, picnic area, camping area. They left all their food out. And guess what? Here come the bears. And they probably thought that was really cute and funny until they decided to eat everything they had. And that used to happen here also in the park and the campgrounds. And they got really strict about that. And most national parks now have big signs up, and they will fine you if they find that you're leaving food in your car that's in the window. Anything that can be seen through a window, a bear will go after, because once they learned to look for, they know what a cooler is, and they know how to open a cooler. They know they just busted open, but they can get in a cooler. You know, they see a box of donuts. Mike's not here. I hope he don't hear this. If they see a box of donuts laying on the front seat of the car, they're going to go get them. And that's not anything for a black bear to smash through a window. This is the other problem besides the bears. I mean, you end up with bears on the highway, and invariably you end up with dead bears on the highway and somebody with a torn up car, or maybe an injured person. And it's all, not all, but largely got to do with this thing that we did with the bears and teaching them that, hey, this is a good place to come eat. And these are just some pictures of some black bears that I really thought were good. I always like to point out this upper left one up here. I can get my cursor over there, maybe. up here. Because here you got a black bear sow, and she's got one black cub and one cinnamon colored cub. Not unusual for that to happen. They're not as common. The cinnamons are not as common, but I just think they're the neatest bears. And these other two pictures I put in here, by and large, because they were just such big looking fellows. And I'd be willing to bet this one at least is a male at the bottom. He just looks like a boar. I mean, look at that snout. He's been in more than one fight. And this is what they do with trash cans. And this is something that I was involved in on our properties at TVA. We were having to start doing this too because we had some up here near me now. You remember Wilbur, Mark? Did you ever go to Little Wilbur? We called it Little Wilbur, Wilbur Lake.
Oh
Up,
yeah.
I mean, not Cherokee, Watauga. Well, we started having some real bear problems up there, and we got them to put in all these bear-proof cans and dumpsters, like the one in the upper right and the lower right. We put those cans in all of our campgrounds to keep wildlife out of them. But that's, you can have great big giant cans, and that's what bears do to them. They get in, which is one of the things I'm going to get to about Gatlinburg in a minute because this was an issue in Gatlinburg, obviously, and a battle to get people to finally realize, hey, this is what happens. You got to do this. And I pull these out off the internet. These are all things that came about because of the bear problems and the bear issues. Even some of these were actually out in public, even while they were still feeding bears at dumps, which is kind of bad. But we got them talking about don't feed the bears. Bears fed or fooled with are dangerous bears, and now we say dead bears. Um, and it says down at the bottom for your protection, the feeding, molesting, touching, or teasing of bears is prohibited. I've seen people do that, try to run up and grab a bear, touch a bear, grab a cub. Again, it's a little bit like trying to run out and mess with a bull buffalo. You're going to get hurt. These signs at the top right were a couple of common ones that they used in parks. Caution: do not feed the bears from the hand. I love this one actually. Caution: do not feed the bears from the hand. Doesn't say you can't feed the bears. Just don't feed them from your hand. So it's almost like they're saying it's okay to feed them. Just don't, throw it down on the ground or something. And they finally took that off, and that's what those two signs represent. This from the hand part went away and just said, "Do not feed the bears." From the hand. I love that. And that poster at the bottom was one that was issued. I don't think any of these. I had dates on some of these, but I don't think they all did. Um, but again, trying to get people to realize that bears look cute, but they, as my sign here says, don't pet the big fluffy dogs. And I like these too because these were both cartoons. One was the Disney thing, and one was Fleischman, or the guy that did Looney Tunes and some of those, or that group, Mary Medley. This one was called, the top one up there was called the Cross Country Detour. And it says, danger, do not feed the bears. Well, the guy's going to take a picture and he gets his camera out to get ready and he hands the bear a sandwich so he can take him. And the bear hits him on the head and shows him the sign that says, do not feed the bears. And that was done by a guy named Edmund Rogers, got with Warner Brothers and Leon Schlesinger, who had to do with creating those cartoons. And in 1940 came up with those signs, and they published that for the National Park Service. Same thing at the lower right. That's a Walt Disney cartoon, Donald Duck, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and it's about not feeding the bears. It says, "Hey, better not look at that sign, Uncle Donald." And he saw, "Oh, phooey, come on, Bruin, have a banana." And there's a sign that says, "Warning, do not feed the bears." And Donald says, "See, same as a kitten. Give me another banana." Okay, give me another one and another one, and they're all gone. And and then you see Donald up on the sign, and the bear's eating everything in the car, and that's exactly what happens. Maybe they don't do it the first time, but they will continue to. They know once they learn it, they know it, and that's why we say a dead fed bear is a dead bear because one, the food's not good for them as a rule. Most of the stuff we eat's not good for wild critters, and two, they used to move bears, trap bears, try to run bears off, and it just in the long run doesn't work. And most of the time, even if they never touched a person, they were still a threat, and they eventually had to be euthanized because they couldn't. You can't once they learn that you just can't, and you can take them off in the back country. And in this part of the world, back country is not far enough away from front country to really be back country, and they come back. You can take a you. It's a known fact that you can drop a boar bear, problem bear, out of the Smokies all the way up in the Cumberland Mountains in Kentucky. And in a week or so, he'll be back in the Smokies panhandling. I mean, that used to happen. There was a story, in fact, that made a lot of news in Tennessee. It's been while I was still in school, so probably the 90s, of a bear that they had radio collared, a young male, a problem bear, or maybe just one they were moving. They put him up on the plateau somewhere in the middle of the state as a restocking thing, I believe, in that case. And he wasn't there a week before they tracked him with the radio collar all the way back through Tennessee, back to the Smokies. He was back in like a week or less. Didn't take him no time. They can cover a lot of ground when they want to, and they can find their way home, and they can find their way back to your picnic basket, boo boo. So they think the bear total. I threw this in there because I had a couple of maps to show. One, the one on the left is what the bear habitat and where bears were when Europeans first came to North America. So as you can see, they were pretty much all over the country. And then basically, this is the habitat they're in now. The one on the right shows more or less where they are now. Some of these quotes are from they quote Leopold, which is kind of cool. In '59 about bear populations and where they thought that at that time that populations were going to survive, such as in New Mexico, in Mexico. It's still uncertain in Mexico. They're not sure about down there. They historically ranged all over the North American continent pretty much. They stayed kind of out of the desert. I mean, even back then, they don't think they were in like Nevada, for example. Maybe nobody wants to go to Nevada. I don't know. But black bear populations by modern day standards are very much on the move or are growing, but that means we got to figure out how to deal with those interactions. So one of the things that has happened in recent years, and I'm not sure exactly how long this has been there, but up in Wisconsin, the North American Bear Center was created, and this is a lot of bears up that way along the edge of Canada and Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan, and all along in there. Ontario, Canada used to be famous for all the black bears they had. And they created this center, and they could bring truly orphan bears in and take care of them and then release them back. They learned how to raise a bear cub and not make him come right back to the first human he sees by imprinting. They learned to be able to do that and then release them back into the wild. And they have a lot of educational programs and a lot of stuff about bears there. I've never been to it. It's in Ely. Oh, there's one in Ely, Minnesota, and I think the other one's in Wisconsin. So maybe there's two, or maybe it is just Ely. You know me, I get confused. So anyway, here's what we have more or less in this part of the country, at least as far as Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia goes. And I didn't get further north than this, but I'm sure there's a map like this. I can't remember if this was just the Tennessee map and they showed all these, or if it was, I can't remember exactly. But These are the places you can find bears in Tennessee, and I'm going to add that they think we've got bears almost all the way across the state. Maybe not a lot of
Yeah,
bears.
these range maps are way overly conservative.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they are.
Well, I know they are. I mean, I was looking at the west there, and it's like, no, there's bears all over that.
You mean this one?
But, yeah, like
Yeah,
right there,
I would. Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
you could paint pretty much the entire state of Arizona except for the awful country.
Well, I would think New Mexico
Green.
has more too.
New Mexico's got way more bears than that.
I have some personal experience with bears in New Mexico. I know there's quite a few in there. And we had a kid get that was a big thing at Philmont with the Boy Scouts, and we had a kid get pulled out of his tent one night by a bear because even though he was told not to, he took the Kool-Aid jug with him in the tent so he could finish it off. And the next morning, we found him laying half out. He was still in his sleeping bag, pulled halfway out of the tent, teeth marks in the bag, and the jug of Kool-Aid was laying off, somewhere else in the campground. They had chewed that thing, looked like you'd shot it with 100 rounds of bird shot or something. But so I'm sure you're right. And I don't even know how many states these. I guess states are, but I mean I don't even know it since bear populations have come back. A lot of these studies probably aren't done exactly in the same way as they were then. And one thing about that, all that stuff I've got jammed in the middle there. They mentioned a guy by the name of Pelton in 1982 is talking about some of the undisturbed forested regions, and maybe that's what they're kind of showing on that map more than range, even though it was range. It's Pelton, and Pelton was one of my instructors at UT, and he's famous for his black bear research. He did a lot. He worked for 40 or 50 years in the Smokies researching black bears, which was a really good place to do that because they were there and they were not undisturbed exactly, but a lot of backcountry there for them to be in. And at one time he kind of had a pretty good idea how many bears were in that whole region and then outside the immediate region at least. But I don't know who developed it, but I know they were doing the bear hair studies where they'd run a little piece of barbed wire around a bait station or something, and then they'd go in and collect all the hair that was stuck on the barbed wire, which it catches all kinds of stuff. And then as DNA technology evolved in the 90s and early aughts of this century, they could identify those bears by the hair. And they would know if this bear was over here last month and then he shows up again over here, or, mama number 379's now got 3 new cubs, that kind of stuff. And that's all over the country. They can identify bears now by such means. I was already at that one, and I was at that. And I'm sorry about that being a terrible map. That was just the only one I had of that region. This is a little thing that TWRA, the wildlife agency here in the state, put out about ways that if you live in bear country, some ways you can sort of bear proof your home. It may not be the right choice of words, but you'll see. I think you should be able to hear this. Can you hear it, Mark?
Well, 20 years ago, ABR was permanently rehabbing orphan cubs and injured or mounted.
Okay, I got to pause here for a minute. I've been to this place. This is the Appalachian Bear Rescue Center, and I won't even say where it is, but it's down towards the Smokies. But I've been where now this isn't where they keep the bears. The bears are secluded. They're off where they're not around people, and they don't feed them, where they can see them. It's a pretty neat place. And this has been around since it was pretty new when I first was back up in this part of the state in the 90s, mid 90s.
There's yearling bears. Most of those have come from Tennessee and Smoky Mountains National Park. There's been a handful from other states. But the program was set up primarily because you were getting these orphan cubs. These cubs have been abandoned or orphaned, and mothers have been killed. And you've got these cubs, and there's really not much you can do with them. It's a great service for us because, to be quite frank, there's not much you can do with an orphan cub. So the group stepped up, started raising money, secured a facility, and then came to the agency and asked for a permit to rehab these cubs. This bear, it came from Greene County. It was found around the Paint Creek area, lethargic. So the officer picked it up and transported it down here, and they've done their job, and he's ready to go. So we will weigh him, put some ear tags in him, and then we will take him back to Greene County.
I love that mask.
Where the bear came from, that's where we should take it.
And away he goes.
Try not to do any supplemental stocking or whatever you want to call it as far as expansion. The entire state used to be covered in bears, back when the state was first settled, and now they were relegated to the easternmost counties. And as they've recovered, they're starting to recolonate and reclaim their former range and slowly moving west. So we want to try to document where that's occurring. Now we're wrapping up our first year of our population estimate, or density estimate that we're doing, which is a cooperative effort between Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. This year we did our easternmost counties, along with South Carolina and Georgia doing theirs, and then next year North Carolina will they're part of that. So we'll have an estimate of the entire southern Appalachian mountain area for black bears, and then the agency is hoping to do 2 more phases out of the next 2 summers and go further west over towards the region 2 and 3 boundaries. Well, we've always estimated, including the park, between 5,000 and 6,000 bears, but that's really an estimate based on your harvest and having a general idea that you're probably harvesting around 5 to 10% of your population. Historically, big game population has been very difficult to get a handle on, but the new technology out there is allowing that to happen. And for the bear, the technology is using DNA analysis. It's a passive survey. We're setting barbed wire hair traps up in the woods, and the bears go through the barbed wire, collects the hair, and then we're pulling the hair off and do DNA analysis to identify the individual, and it's just a basic marker capture from that point. So the technology's finally gotten to where we can get these estimates. The thing that's important to know about bears is their natural range in Tennessee is the entire state. If you look at historical documents, the place was full of black bears. So the bears aren't really migrating, they're recolonizing former range. And that's going on all over the Southeast. And the agency stance is that we're not going to discourage that, but we're not going to encourage it either by doing any supplemental stalking. What the agency is doing is we've been developing with all the other Southeast states a new education program called BearWise. And one of the things we're focusing on is try to get people ready for what's coming, because we are going to have bears in Middle Tennessee. I mean, we're already seeing reports of cubs in Franklin County down that way. We occasionally get reports up in
That's cool.
County. We've gotten reports even in West Tennessee and the Mississippi border. The bear population is expanding into that former range, and so as an agency, our job is to try to get people prepared for that. People just need to be aware of what to do when they do live in areas where there's bears, and that's basically managing the attractants, which would be things like bird seed, household garbage, and pet food. They'll take care of those 3 items that'll cover probably 95% of the issues we have with bears.
Sorry, Rhonda, I didn't see that. I should have turned them on to begin with. I didn't realize that I had that capability on that recording. Well, let me see if I can get out of this without doing something really stupid. Okay, come on. Hang on, I gotta find the button here. There we go. All right. Now, yeah. Nope. Damn it. How did I fix that?
Hit the escape button, maybe.
Well, I did. I thought that would do it, and it's not. But I got out of it just a second ago. Oh, it's right there. Okay, one of the things that Tennessee does, and I'd say out there, I don't know if they do this. I don't know if they do this for all, but if you harvest a bear in Tennessee, which is the politically correct, I guess you will say, way of saying kill one. If you kill one, or if you hunt one and kill it, as of 2022, and they've been doing this longer than that, because I knew I had to. They said 2022, but I did this. When I was still in school in the '90s, late '90s, we did check stations with the state, and they were taking teeth then, but maybe it was only at check stations. But they submit a tooth, and anytime you take a bear, you submit a tooth to the state, and then they can analyze that, see if they've got any other records. They can match it with hair, DNA, but they can tell. If many of you know, you can take teeth even from our ancestors and learn a lot by what's in the tooth. Teeth are a great record of our life, basically. And so, what the TWRA site is about is each harvested bear hunters. They want them, please use the website. Tell TWRA you've mailed them a tooth and to which harvested bear it belongs, and that's based on the number of the tag when you harvested the bear, or they have the tag by that point if you check the bear in properly. And you can go back and look at those records. I mean, some hunters like to do that kind of stuff, and it's all part of trying to track the bears and figure out what's going on with them around the state as a rule. I don't know. Let me see if this opens up. This may take us to that page. And it took me to that page, but it didn't take you to that page. That's what I thought. So I believe this is the page. So if you were on that, if you did it, and you sent a tooth in, this is the page you would go to, and to sign up to register the bear by the numbers on the tag and all that, and then go back to check what kind of information might come up about it. It's sort of like buying a piece of chinaware or an art, and it's got an autograph on it. And the guy that painted it and running back and tracking it down, see where all it's been in its life. Kind of neat. I mean, some people get into that. Some hunters are never going to use it, but I think it's kind of neat. So he mentioned something called BearWise a minute ago, and excuse me, I just pulled these up because these are a couple of the logos that BearWise uses. And it's a program in association with fish and wildlife agencies all over the country. And, it's just ways to get information out to the general public about, hey, bears are moving into this part of the country. You need to be aware of that. And in some cases, we got stuff we need you to maybe think about, and like, leaving out your cat food and your dog food. And so I've got just another little short thing here about that. And this video was put out by BearWise, but it's about keeping bears out of your house. It should, hopefully this will play also.
In the Tahoe Basin especially, we have bears that like to hibernate in crawl spaces and under decks, so I thought we could turn a little video for you to show you how to secure that. So we've got a pretend crawl space entrance right here. Of course, crawl spaces are all sorts of shapes and sizes. Don't be fooled by the size of your crawl space door. Bears can get in very small places. So as part of your winterization of your home, secure your crawl space. It's very simple. All you need is a piece of plywood, and we recommend 3/4 inch plywood. It needs to be tough and thick because bears have those little cat claws and they can tear wood apart. That's part of what they do out in the wild. The other thing that you need is a lag screw or a lag bolt. We recommend these because if you use just a typical nail, a bear can pull that out of the siding very easily. So you need a really hefty duty screw to be able to secure it and not have the bear be able to pull out. And attach a fender washer to the back end of that screw, so when you put it in, you've got that much more surface area that's going to make it hard for the bear to pop that out. We'll show you how it's done. So you'll take your plywood board, and you're going to put it flush over your crawl space, okay? You want that flat surface. If you have a little bit of a lip there, the bear can grab onto it and pull that off. You're going to drill in your hole. Okay, once you've got your pilot hole drilled, go ahead and you just put your lag bolt in. And it's that easy. You want to do repeated ones across. Again, you want to secure this as much as you possibly can so the bear can't find any weakness. So we'll do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so there you go. You have a secure crawl space. If I can do it, you can do it. Definitely a contractor can do it. Ideally, somebody else would do it prettier than this, but we have flush edges so the bears can't get their claws in. We've got our lag screws and our 3/4 inch plywood. Very important to remember that. There you go. Bear's not getting in and your crawl space is secure. We want to encourage the bear to go and
That's a big bear.
Normal bear would. But since we have the opportunity, why don't we go take a look at what a den looks like? So as you can see, it's a pretty elaborate nest that the bear is in here. Pulled in all the pine needles it can find. There's even a little bit of insulation from around the pipes. Very, very cozy shelter. If this was under a house, this would probably have a lot of insulation in it as they pull it down from up above. They can also snap some wires and pull down electrical lines. They also leave a hole open to your crawl space where really cool air can get in there and cause your water pipes to freeze. Bears, once they've invested in making this kind of a den, are going to come back. So it's very important to secure it and discourage the bear from returning. In order to do that, in this situation, we went ahead and put up an electric fencing structure around the porch to just help deter the bear from coming back here. The electric is a safe way to just tell the bear you need to go and find yourself a home somewhere else, ideally underneath a rock or in a tree. We hope these suggestions have been helpful for you. We want to make sure that our homeowners up in the Tahoe Basin are able to keep their homes secure. But we also want to do this for our bears. We definitely want our Tahoe bears to be wild and to remain wild. And when our bears start making urban dens, it exposes them to habituation and food conditioning that we want to try and avoid. So don't do it just for yourself, do it for our bears too. Help us keep our bears wild.
So there, that's just a little video, and I get why they put out videos like that. And no, I don't even want to look at some of those pictures. That cat looks like it's eating somebody. I've heard of this, and I almost want to say I know somebody that this happened to, and I could be wrong about that. But a big dog door in your door, if it's left open, a bear can come right on in and have breakfast with you some morning because they can definitely smell food. And so you need to cover things like that up if you're not going to be there. And probably even if you are, you close yours up at night, won't you, Mark? Your dog door, don't you have a cover slide down door or something on it? I remember.
Yeah, but it wouldn't keep a bear out.
No, it probably wouldn't, but at least it's not just open. I mean, but that's kind of the general idea. But no, it wouldn't keep a bear out. That, I mean, just as an example, that camping trailer at the bottom of the page is a pretty good example. I mean, they just ripped that door. I don't know if you've ever tugged on one of those doors. Now they're not like a great oaken door or anything, but sheet metal like that, when it's bent and formed and riveted together like that, it's pretty dang tough. And they just a bear just opened that one right up. And if nobody was there all winter, I'd say they had a nice comfy sleep. But so those kinds of things are just asking for it, really. Which brought me all the way back around to what I said earlier about the Gatlinburg being involved in having a black bear management program. Now, what Chris said earlier is all very true, and then some. Um, you know, we have there, even though Gatlinburg has this program, they are still constantly fighting up there to get people to pay attention, uh, to actually take it seriously and get involved, because they've had to do, again, they have moved bears around from time to time, and historically they used to do that, but it doesn't work very well. And again, the bears end up having to be euthanized, and that just gets everybody all upset. So, the best way to prevent that is to do what they say and protect your trash cans, keep your stuff put up. Whoops. Oh, I know what I was going to do. So that's the end, but I wanted to show you a page from Gatlinburg's. Let me find it here because that's about Kermit Roosevelt. You don't want to see that one. Well, you might want to see it, but okay. I'm going to share this one. Well, where'd I go? Oh, there I go. Uh-oh. I think it's this one. And yeah, that's it. So this is like the front page of the Gatlinburg Black Bear Management Program, and they are trying to enforce this. Um, I'll be honest, bear-proof trash cans are not inexpensive. In fact, they can be fairly expensive. I mean, I know we paid several $100s, and they've gone up. Some of the large ones we put out in campgrounds were $1,200. That might have been a double bear can, that can be filled from two sides, and but so they're not cheap. But the problem is, if you don't do this kind of stuff or some method, and there are less expensive versions, um, then you're just going to end up with more and more problem. And they've tried to partner with TWRA on this, and I'm pretty sure that the National Park Service has also been involved in trying to help them do something about their bear problem, because they are right in the middle of the Smokies. The biggest bear I ever saw in Tennessee was walking down the road in Gatlinburg up on the hill one day. He must have been 500 pounds at least. The biggest, wooliest, slickest looking black bear I've ever seen. And he was right there just, on the edge of town, hanging out. Now, they've been doing this since 1999, but people still they still don't pay much attention to it. Some people don't. But they're actively now going after people, and they will fine you if you don't do what they tell you to do. And again, it's not because they're wanting to raise money. It's all about trying to protect the bears, but protect the people and prevent having to euthanize the bears. So, I mean, you can go to this webpage. I've got the link for this. I'll copy and post it here in case anybody wants to see it. And I've got some other ones if anybody's interested. I didn't put them all in the chat. I may go back and do that here in a minute. But you can go to this website and read about the things Gatlinburg is trying to do to, you know, protect the bears and keep people from being hurt downtown. Now, what Chris said is very true. Hey, Dave, other Dave, Dave's Disney Dreams. But just this past year, I know of at least 2 or 3 instances where they had bears roaming around in the streets in Gatlinburg, chasing people around, and you know they come up to a place where somebody's eating lunch on a table in the middle of town, and a bear comes up, and you don't really people don't think about taking their food with them; they just leave it for the bear. So that happens pretty regular. And it can also vary greatly with the for example, if mast is high, which is food source within the park, acorns, uh, if there's a lot of soft mass like berries and things available, bears will not tend to wander as much and look for food. But if the mass crop is low, which it can be every few years in Tennessee, it's kind of irregular, depending on when we have our last frost of the season. Um, then you can end up with bears out looking for food, and that's what you run in, and that's what happens. So anyway, I think keeping things away is more about blocking the smell from them than actually keeping them out. Well, it's a little bit of both. Actually, I don't know about that. I'd probably differ with you on that, Rhonda. And I say that because you're not going to keep the smell. You can have the best bear proof can in the world. It's not going to keep the smell away from them. But the thing is, if they can't open it, then they will leave eventually. They'll leave it alone. But it's be really, really difficult. Bears and other wildlife have such honed senses of smell. It'd be very difficult to keep the smell away anyway. I've seen a video. She said I've seen a video recently about a bear that got unlocked car and destroyed it. Oh yes, absolutely. Oh, he couldn't get out from the inside. Well, I'm surprised he didn't just go through, bust out the windows. That's what they do in other parks. I mean, I think it was. I don't know if it was Yellowstone. I think it was Yellowstone a few years ago. I remember reading a story. It might have been further back than that, but it's when they started making people put stuff in the trunk of their cars because they were leaving stuff like in the back seat, and they were just going through the rear window. They would just break the windows out of the car and climb up on the car, break the window out, and go right on through. But I've seen some videos where they just open the doors and go right in an unlocked car. And I was amazed how easily they opened that car door. I mean, I know they've got the strength, but they've got the intelligence to figure it out. Oh, they had safety glass in them so it didn't just fall out and break. I got you. That makes it a little harder, but I guess that would be true if it didn't fall out. Rear windows and front windows sometimes will pop out. Side windows are made differently, so they might not, and they might just shatter, and then that whatever that stuff inside them is that keeps them together would not be hard to push out. But I'm still surprised they didn't get out. They can pretty much get wherever they want to get. That's been my experience anyway. Anyway, any thoughts or comments? If anybody wants a link, I've got some other links from some of these places if you're interested. But in your particular state, look on if you're interested or you live outside the city or live in areas where there are bears now, or they, maybe there and you're not sure. Go to your DNR or whatever the wildlife management, every how it works, whether it's under natural resources, park and recreation, or if it's an independent agency like it is here in Tennessee. TWRA is an entity of itself within the state, and they have their own stuff. You can go to those websites and get information. And if you have a bear in your house, I would call I'd call those people, and they can get somebody out there if you need to get it moved. and you don't want to do it yourself. You might end up being lunch, or if nothing else, just scarred for life. Now it can leave. You might get some really cool scars out of it, but you might not want to have them. There's an app called Animal Help. I did not know that, Rhonda. Well, let me look for that. Let me see what that is. Download the free Animal Help now for smartphones. Huh. Oh, it says helps direct anyone in the United States who encounters a wildlife emergency to the closest, most appropriate help. That's helpful if you got phone service. I'm going to be honest. There are places out like where Mark lives where you don't have phone service. Oh, there's places there where you don't have it either, but it's what is suggested when you need help by Georgia DNR. Interesting. Probably here too. I just didn't look that up. It's a little bit like that story that I think we talked about. Mark and I know talked about it. I think it was 3 young ladies who were out tubing in a river. I don't remember if it was the Snake River or which river it was. Somewhere out in Idaho, I think. And they were attacked by otters.
Montana.
And one of the problems they had was no phone service. So somebody had to walk out. If I remember correctly, one of them had to walk out and find help, which was, no easy task. I know at least one of those ladies got chewed up pretty bad and had to be airlifted out of there. Of course, that was about the only way they had to get them out of there, I think. They managed to float down on the river far enough that there wasn't any road access in that immediate area, I don't think. Which also could be a bear. I'm just using otter as an example. Probably not a bad idea, Nico. My suggestion is if you're going to carry a decent med kit with you, though, make sure you know how to use everything. Because, and that's just something I learned from taking like outdoor emergency first aid classes and things. And I carry one on my motorcycle that has, as they said in Hatari, a tourniquet and even some stuff that I could probably stitch you up if I had to, but and some stuff that clots blood and things of that nature that you might need. And I'd carry that out, if I was out back in the outback too, or in the backwoods, and just hope you never need it. Anyway, yeah, I carry one in my truck with the tourniquet and everything. Tourniquets have gotten a lot better over the years. I mean, I can remember when they were basically just still tying. I was trying to just, of course, you can still do that if you need one. You can tie it out of anything, but now they make them so you can release them occasionally. And although now I think they just say put it on and leave it and wait for the doctors to do it. They used to tell us to loosen it and loosen it, tighten it, loosen it, tighten it. And I don't know if they do that so much anymore. A belt and a stick, a bandana, a pant leg rip your pants off. You'd be surprised what you can make with clothing if you need to. But that's all in worst case scenarios. Hopefully you won't do that. And most of the time, the damage that's being done when it comes to bears is to the bears themselves or to houses and, strewing garbage all over the place. I volunteer for the Georgia Wildlife Network Heartline. I haven't started yet, but I have access to see that's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to hear a story relate to that when you get trained. I'd like to know a little bit more about that, Rhonda. That might be interesting to see what they tell you to do and how they train you for something like that. I understand. Chris says when he goes fishing in the Smokies, I carry a small air horn. Huh. Well, that's probably not a bad idea because hell, I'd probably run if you blew an air horn in my face. So Chris, go back to what you said earlier about the fishing tournament in Gatlinburg. When the Bears got involved in that, were they getting fish that people were giving them, or were they, getting fish off people's stringers? I don't know how that, or out of their containers, whatever they're keeping them in live. Maybe they have a live well or a tank to put them in. I don't know, but how were they doing that, Chris? Or how was that? What was going on exactly? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, I'm surprised, Mark. When we used to hunt up at Dix Creek, that was part of the black bear management area there along North Carolina Tennessee border. I'm really surprised we never had any. Even then, there were plenty of bears up there. Even then, I don't know. I'm surprised we never had any run-ins with them at all, and I never had a problem up there with them. And I can. Now we saw a few over time, and you know you you nosed up to a couple coming through the rhododendron thicket, um, but they never got in our camp. I mean, that was never an issue at that time. They were doing their own fishing. Interesting. Huh. I guess was that stocked for this event, Chris? I mean, were there more fish in the creek than normal? Because I know they do stock sections of creeks for some events. Um, and apparently we have to contact DNR when people decide to keep the animal. Yeah, well, you're not supposed. Yeah, most states it is illegal in most states to keep indigenous wildlife as a pet. As in, if you got a spider monkey from another country, that might be a pet, but a raccoon from Tennessee, you're not supposed to have as a pet, or a bear cub, or a deer fawn. I mean, those things are all off limits. Supposed to be. They were stocked for the tournament. So the bears know when they stock the creek to come out for dinner. That's interesting. So they figured that out. And I'm not surprised. That's interesting. They probably see the truck coming. They seem to have a huge problem with people keeping deer. They do. And the problem with that, Rhonda, is people think that every deer fawn they find is bambi and it's deserted, or its mama's being killed by somebody or something. And I can't prove this, but 90% of the time, none of that's true. Deer leave their fawns hidden off by themselves sometimes, and they lay very still, and they wait till their mother comes back to nurse or whatever. But the doe may not be anywhere near there. In fact, the doe may run off the other way, and that's part of their strategy to lead you off. And there they find a fawn line there, and they just automatically assume that it's an orphan, and it's not. And then once they've handled it and got man smell on it, especially once they start feeding it or doing all that stuff, then it is. Well, they'll leave them. They can leave them for a long time periods of time, Tina. Yes, but people do that, and deer. It is. I mean, I don't know how many times I know people that brought deer up to our office because they'd found it down here by the lake or down here by the river, and it must be abandoned because they couldn't find their mother. Sometimes we could talk them into taking it back and turning it loose, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it just doesn't. Because if they abandon the fawn, then it's going to die. But it's the people's fault that happens. It's not the deer's fault. Chris, how big were those fish? I mean, I know they stock them, but usually I thought they stocked them with, well, a little pigeon they might stock with bigger fish because of the tourist trade, though. I don't, or just, because they have more people fishing it, but I only assume it could be an orphan if it's squalling all day and its air edges are ragged. That's probably a good point. Yeah, but those, I mean, most wildlife problems you have are related to people problems, just like with the bears. I mean, if we didn't feed the bears, then the bears wouldn't be near as big a problem. So, anyway, that's all I got. What you got going on the rest of the day?
Me?
Yeah, you going for a ride or anything
I
today?
don't know.
No. In the last 4 or 5 years, they've been stocking larger trout in town. Okay. I know a lot of people like to fish through there, or at least I think they do. I know they sell permits. I think you can buy a permit just to fish that part. In fact, I think you have to have one to fish the stream through Gatlinburg. But I think they do that again for the tourist trade and all the people in hotels along through there and everything. Hopefully by the next show I'll have some good news. Oh, what did I miss, Nico?
His elk tag.
Elk tag. That's right. You put in for an elk tag in Arizona, right?
And pronghorn.
And pronghorn. Mom doesn't feed over day. Yeah, Nico, I'd like to. I'm interested now. You've got my curiosity piqued a little bit, just to see if you get lucky on that. I know I don't know about where you're at, but most states, I guess that's getting harder and harder, and especially if you're out of state trying to put in. So, yeah, I don't have too many pronghorn points, so I doubt I'll get down for that, drawn for that. But who knows? How many points does it? I mean, is there a certain number you have to have before you're eligible? I don't know how that works, so I've never dealt with the points thing. Well, you have, I know, but
Yeah, till I'm blue in the face.
I'm sure. Well, guys, I think I'm going to shut her down. If nobody if has anything else, thanks everybody for coming in. Thanks for all the comments, and Nico and Chris. Thank you guys for your input, and Rhonda and everybody else. You know, if you come up with something interesting and you want to bring it up next time, by all means, throw it in the chat. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week yet, so we'll figure that out between now and then. Anyway, just for gee whiz, one thing, let me tell you something. I was looking at some analytical numbers the other night in the show we did with Dave, and where he tied flies with Chris and Dave, and right, it was you, wasn't it, Chris? It's just the same. I'll make sure I'm not getting Chris's mixed up. That was I have more views on that video than any other video I've ever had. Maybe I need to get Dave on more often and tie flies. I don't know. Get your fly tying rig out and we'll see how that works. Anyway, guys, everybody have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you get out and maybe have fun, go out and eat, have something fun, do something fun today. And otherwise, just have a great week. Watch it. Hope you watch the Olympics. Man, there was the women. If you like hockey, and the American women's hockey team is on a tear. They are just, as we say back here, whooping butt. And I mean, I guess you could say the games aren't very interesting because they're scoring a lot, and the other teams aren't scoring anything. 1 point. They've had one goal scored against them so far this whole tournament out of like 5 or 6 games now. All shutouts, but 1 point. And that might have been Canada. No, they shut Canada out. They're going to be playing Canada again here real soon, but they've been on fire. Anyway, guys, everybody have a good weekend. Buddy, you take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon.
Later on.
Later, bye bye, everybody.